A Conservative MP says he's concerned that Prime Minister Mark Carney's cabinet doesn't include a labor minister at a time of economic uncertainty amid U.S. tariffs. Jamil Javani represents a riding in central Ontario. He wrote to the new Minister of Jobs and Families, saying his region is facing significant challenges due in part to layoffs at the General Motors assembly plant in Oshawa. Mr. Javani is calling on the Prime Minister to reinstate a full labor minister into cabinet after Mr. Carney appointed a Secretary of State for Labor, which is essentially a junior minister. Our correspondent Wyatt Sharpe has more on Carney's cabinet.
Prime Minister Mark Carney unveiling his new cabinet yesterday. And while, he would like to paint it as one of the smallest cabinets in Canadian history, certainly his new model that dates back to the 1960s via introducing 10 secretaries of state, something that's a lot more popular in the United Kingdom and other kind of British Commonwealth countries than it has been in Canada. Canada got rid of kind of that premise to try and, at the time, reduce the amount of cabinet ministers who were sitting around the cabinet table. And now people kind of speculating the reason Mark Carney is bringing back these Secretary of State portfolios is to try and satisfy more MPs within the Liberal Party caucus who perhaps would have liked to have a cabinet position, but there just simply wasn't space for them around the cabinet table. But there are a number of kind of controversial appointments, but also a number of people who are coming out and openly speaking about the fact that they were not appointed to cabinet. You have a number of Trudeau-era ministers who were let go and ousted from cabinet. 50+% of the new cabinet is indeed new faces. And you're seeing a number of kind of big, high-level, portfolio changes, especially with respect to foreign affairs. That's where you have Melanie Joly, who was the foreign minister, who has kind of been at the forefront of Canada's counter kind of attack and response to the United States under Donald Trump. She's actually moving to become the new industry minister. Meanwhile, Anita Anand, who has served as the defense minister, she's been the procurement minister, and just recently in the cabinet of Mark Carney for the first time, she was the innovation minister. She's now going to be taking over the foreign affairs portfolio. Now, there's also kind of some interesting components to this because, of course, Mark Carney, when he was elected leader of the Liberal Party just a few weeks before he called the election, had introduced a cabinet that was indeed the smallest in Canadian history. It was only about 20 people around that cabinet table. And so a lot of people were kind of speculating maybe some of these appointments might actually remain somewhat similar and there wouldn't be a whole lot of changes. Of course, Mark Carney wanted to try and bring as many new MPs and repaint what the Liberal Party and what this government is to differentiate themselves from Justin Trudeau. Now, some people unhappy with that. You have Nathaniel Erskine-Smith, who's the MP from Beaches, East York, who actually he put out a statement and basically admitted that part of the reason he ran for re-election was the promise that he could do more good and actually contribute more around the cabinet table. So certainly that's one component that we're going to be watching. And, if you look to it as well, you have the likes of Jamil Javani, a Conservative MP from Durham, who's been criticizing the government for taking away some really key portfolios. Again, going back to kind of that Secretary of State model that I was mentioning. The government, of course, has for a long time had a labor ministry. Now they've actually gotten rid of that ministry, created a Secretary of State portfolio for that, and it's kind of under the guise and under the branch of a new ministry. Jamil Javani saying, out of all of the cabinet ministers that this government has unveiled, you have the likes of Evan Solomon, who's been appointed to a new ministry of artificial intelligence. There's a new ministry for government transformation. Jamil Javani really making an effort to say if the government can create a whole host of new ministries without having to worry about kind of that small government promise, then they should be able to keep the labor ministry, which of course oversees the rights of, hundreds of thousands, millions of workers across the country.